Hey guys, and welcome back to the Layah Heilpern show powered by Icon Plus. Since it's powered by Icon Plus, I have a news announcement for you. So more than 60% of ICX tokens are locked up by investors, which means that more people are investing long-term in Icon and actually earning up to 12% interest per year passive income. So this is also powered by and sponsored by BlockFi. So I want to give a quick shout out to them and say thank you because I actually use them to earn up to 8.6% interest on my USDC. USDC is a stable coin, so you can earn so much interest when you're in crypto. So I'm going to leave the link in the description, in the bio, wherever you want to get it. And you can earn, I think actually at the moment, it's around $250 if you deposit with them. And before we start the show, a last final shout out to CoinFlip. So CoinFlip are doing some incredible work across the States. They're pushing Bitcoin mass adoption. They have a bunch of ATMs. I think it's nearly over 800 ATMs in 45 different states. So huge shout out to them. They're doing some amazing work. So joining me today is somebody a little different. I'm really excited to chat to him. It's going to be super unfiltered. I actually have no specific questions lined up. It's just going to be, we're just going to go for it. Okay. So he is a boxer, entrepreneur, competitive chess player, and he focuses on self-improvement. It is, of course, Ed Latimore. How are you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. I heard you going through all the sponsors, and I said, you know what? I'm a fish out of water because I don't know anything about crypto, and I should. And I'm sure that's like admitting you don't believe in God and the church, like me saying that right now on the show. But but eventually I'm sure I will learn about it because it seems like the kind of thing where if you don't learn about it, you're at a marked disadvantage moving forward in the future.
100%. I actually wasn't even going to bring crypto up, but since we're here, I wasn't going to do it. But since we're here, you are somebody who's all about, you're an entrepreneur. You're all about sort of like doing your best, pushing forward, pushing through the pain, forgetting the emotion, just keep going. I feel like, and also you're all about taking personal responsibility. I feel like that's totally in line with crypto and particularly with Bitcoin. Like, do you have any interest whatsoever?
Well, so all of that, yes, all of that is perfectly in line with the philosophy. And I've actually read what is that book, The Bitcoin Standard. I thought it was a great book. If for any other reason, it made me understand exactly what money is and how money works. And I said, oh, okay, that's a really cool idea. As far as my personal interest in it goes, right now it seems like a thing to invest in, like a commodity. What I was interested in initially was like, okay, is this going to be a thing that eventually, in my lifetime, replaces fiat currency? And if it does, then what are the implications of that for a regular person? Because you have to remember, I think I'm blessed in the perspective that I get growing because I grew up extraordinarily poor as you can really be in America and not be homeless. I was in public housing. I believe you guys call those Commonwealth estates over in the UK. I grew up in council estates.
Council estates, yeah.
I grew up in that environment, and then I had a brief stint with the middle class, and I think there's no real, definitely not middle class anymore. I don't know if I'm officially like upper class, but definitely not there. But what that does is going through that path of life is you have perspective. And my perspective is, okay, like, how does the normal person make use of this? And if I can't get to how a regular person who wakes up at 10 at night and wants to go get some 40s down the block, like if I can't figure out how they're going to use it to do so, then I'm not there. Which like one of the things that changed my mind is the whole OnlyFans thing. For example, my first thought was like, okay, guys that want to go to the strip club, how they going to drop, make it rain with Bitcoin? And then
how they going to make it rain with Bitcoin? I love
that. All of a sudden, you have this influx of, what's the best way to put this? Digital.
Yes, exactly.
Digital voyeurism, and there are a lot of different ways to pay for your pleasure now, and those transactions can be conducted in a digital manner. So I think as the world moves more digital, it starts making more sense to me how the common person gets involved in it. And I think the ultimate dream if I'm not mistaken, of many people who are in the space will be realized, which is that it replaces uh, fiat non-backed currency. But right now, my mind can't get there. And then what does that have to do with my interest in it? Right now, because I'm so focused on uh, generating a certain amount of income, my mind just does not let me go invest in some things. Now that is definitely changing, probably in 2021. But that I'm just explaining my past and why I've not converted to the church of Bitcoin and but
The Church of Bitcoin. I love
and
that.
cryptocurrency.
Yeah. Okay. So so much gone on there. So firstly, I think that's really interesting. You make such an interesting point about, sex work is now online. I'm actually not a huge fan of that industry, but as a woman, I would say I think it's an incredible option because it's safer, and people can pay in Bitcoin, and Bitcoin at the moment is on the absolute run. So speaking of coming from such a poor background, if somebody gave you like $50, let's just say, I don't know, where like a few months ago, you would have absolutely made a lot of money on it by now, and you'll continue to. But I wanted to talk about you mainly. Don't really want to talk so much about Bitcoin, but I think that's super cool that you're no, but it's cool. It's cool that you have an interest in it. But I want to talk about you because you are a lot of different things. You're a boxer, author, competitive chess player, so it's insanely diverse. So how would you define yourself?
I am someone who I heard this phrase. I don't know if you're familiar with Hotep Jesus, but I
Yeah.
heard this phrase. He used it on Donovan Sharp show. He said, I'm a guy who realized that his life didn't match his ambition, and so one day I woke up and I said, okay, how do I start making how I see myself become reflected in reality so other people see me that same way. And I said, okay, let me go and do the things that challenge me and push me that other people won't do, can't do, and see how far I can go. My motto, like I always tell people when they go, are you afraid about afraid of getting hurt in the ring or dying or whatever? And I'm gonna die anyway, right? Let me get some stories out of this life at least. At least when I'm old, someone's not like, oh goodness, here comes grandpa again. Like, no, they're like, okay, man, here comes this guy. He's got something cool to talk about. And that mentality, perhaps is not the physically safest, but it has led to a very interesting life. Because I didn't start boxing when I was younger. Like I made a conscious decision as an adult to go, I'm going to go do this. And not only am I going to go do it, at a high enough level, if I can get there. But I'm gonna do it the right way, which is start as an amateur. No one's paying you. No one cares. Most of your fights, a lot of them get canceled. You waste all evening and stuff like that. But it pushes you, and you develop a certain kind of grit that you can't get anywhere else. And it also, and I talk about this a lot. One of the best things boxing did for me is it shifted my mindset from fixed to growth. I had a fixed mindset about a lot of things academically, and I said, wait a second, if I can learn how to fight, man, because I was not very good when I started, and I did not think I thought I was going to become good. I'm sure a lot of people around me didn't think much would develop of me, but I kept learning the diligent approach, whatever. And when I seen what that did for my amateur career and my professional career, I said, okay, if I did it there, can I do the same thing for my mind? Can I make myself intelligent? Can I approach problems that I had? Because I had a big issue with math. I wrote about it on my site, in a few different articles, and I said, no, we're gonna do this like boxing because it can't be worse than boxing because this is a real like negative feedback mechanism when you make a mistake. Worst thing that happens is I get the wrong answer in a math problem, right? So I took that approach and it helped me become who I am today and get through those things to get my physics degree to go on and now learn chess and writing. The whole idea, to sum me up, is I believe that if I'm given enough time, I can learn anything, and I'm going to choose things that are going to force me to develop. And that's really what my life is about. I try to continue to develop myself and continue to improve. And I know I'll never max out. I'm gonna die before then, but that's no reason to not try, right?
Yeah, I think there's so much going on here. So I want to kind of go back to, because you said you did grow up in a council estate. It was very, very poor. You were very poor. School was very difficult, and there wasn't a lot going on. Essentially, I think I read on your site you said that you had a lot of anger issues. So you've clearly gone from, and at the beginning you sort of said, "Oh, am I upper class now?" So you've gone from you've jumped like 3 classes. If that's even possible. So my question to you then is, what is going on right now? Because if we look at today's world, there's a lot of issues in terms of the culture wars, class wars. People sort of, the idea of personal responsibility is sort of frowned upon. People sort of are unable to, do anything great for themselves because they have a million reasons why they can't. So coming from such a background that you came from, why do you think you were able to, but other people aren't able to? And also, actually, I'll ask the next bit after. Go for it. And also, no, I will ask it now. I remember I was reading, and you said, your father wasn't always super present. So even you had that against you as a young man. So how does that go? Why were you able to and other people can't?
Um, Aside from luck, right? Because that's a useless
I
answer.
don't believe in luck. I don't believe in luck.
um, you know, I remember that I never wanted to feel weak, and I
Yeah.
figured out very early that there are a few ways to feel weak, and I tried to avoid all of them. One is when people had control over how you felt. They can make you feel a certain way. They can make you angry. They can make you cry, whatever, right? They can make you divert your path. I remember one time I was afraid of this bully on my bus, so I started walking to school. And I remember I'm a
Oh,
kid. I mean like a kid.
yeah.
Like probably I remember where I lived, so I was probably like 7, and I'm walking like over two miles to school, whatever. And
That's horrible.
that's a thing that you don't ever want. Like you don't want to experience that type of weakness. So you learn, you start experimenting with ways to not experience that. And one of the biggest ways is to always be in control of yourself. And when you're always in control of yourself, what happens is you start having a certain expectation heaped upon you, and either you rise to meet that, or you get punished and you lose, freedoms, abilities, um, access to things that can make your time pass better. Okay, so here it all starts with the emotional control and not being responsive to my environment, creating my own kind of inner peace in my inner world. Because I had to. There was nothing around me that suggested uh, safety or security or peace. I had to create those environments appear, and in doing so, I went, all right. Well, I can do this. What else helps me do that? Okay, doing the opposite of everyone around me, and it just not just so happens. I had to do it because I didn't want to be part of that environment, because I was trying to create a space different than what was around me. That meant showing up on time, for example. Like I
Hmm.
absolutely, I'm still to this day a stickler about time. Like
Really.
I can't stand people who are late. My girlfriend jokes that like we get to the airport 2 hours early. And it's not really joking. I guess we do because I'm so terrified of like being late. But that's one of the
2 hours
things.
isn't that early. 2 hours is great. 2 hours is not that early. I
Yeah,
was going like
yeah,
3 hours.
right. See, you get it, right? So I try to be in control of my time. I try to, if I see a difficulty, I don't ever want that difficulty to sneak up on me, because one of the things you just learn that if you face it head on, you might not get an advantage, but you aren't at a disadvantage. At least not as big. At least not a bigger one than if you try to escape it and you have to deal with it eventually. So I developed this mindset again of I have to face this problem before this problem decides to face me. Because if it faces me, and I'm not ready, we got a big problem. Or I like to say, you can pay now or you can pay later. If you pay now, you might get a discount. If you pay later, you're definitely going to have to kick it with interest. So you pick which one is up, which one you want to do. So having that mentality, right? So now I got control of my time. Now, and then I'm trying to create my environment, and in doing so, I have to face any problem that comes up. And the ability to do that, to recognize what a problem is I never got a chance to deceive myself. I never got a chance to believe that someone was my friend if they weren't, because that was a costly mistake. I never got a chance to believe that something would turn out okay just because I hoped it did. I always went and made sure things would work the way I wanted them to. I never got comfortable letting things be out of my control. And so if I'm able to do those four things, and this is really the first time I've ever kind of broken that down. Maybe I'll like turn it into an article or something. But if I'm able to do those four things, if I'm able to control my emotions and then control my environment, face problems as they're coming at me, and I can face them because I do not let myself become deceived by reality. And remember, this isn't like me as a kid going, this is my master plan for ruling the world. No, this is just so I can cope with the day to day, like either at school or at home. You get those, I got those four things down, and so I don't understand how one is able to live not in control, not wanting to be in control, looking for anything to blame, looking for things to be outraged about. Like all of those things go against everything that has helped me survive and continues to help me thrive.
I think that's fascinating. You say these are the things that helped you survive. For me, I totally agree with you anyway, which is obviously, one of the main reasons why, I saw you online and I was like, oh, wow, I really agree with everything this guy's saying. I think it's such a shame that people are unable to adopt these kind of mentalities or don't agree with these mentalities because, I know you agree anyway, but no one's coming to save you.
Right.
So I think it's such a shame that we can't sort of agree that no one's coming to save us, because even the government, even if let's say they really did have our best intentions at heart, they literally just can't. There's too many people. Do you know what I mean? And even if they did come and save you, the only way that money really could stretch is to bring everybody down to the lowest common denominator, which is communism. But communism aside,
Oh man, you're spitting right now. You're saying something. Okay.
Please go for it.
One of the things I was just talking about this with my buddy yesterday, and I came to this conclusion maybe last year that there aren't really two political party. Wow, I know you guys are in the UK or in Europe. You have a bit of a different system,
No, we're
but
the same. Two
but
parties.
right, but there's not really two political parties. It's not really conservative, liberal, nothing. What it is it's people who believe that something is going to save or protect them, whether that be the government, whether that be a god, whatever. Okay, and it's people who understand that no one is coming to save them, and they've got to figure this thing out on their own. And if you look at it that way, it's not entirely accurate, but it's useful enough and precise enough to where you can make accurate predictions and useful predictions. For example, I should not be able to, but we can, I should not be able to look at your stance on the coronavirus and tell where you lean politically, but I can. And the reason for that is there tends to be a strong enough overlap. Remember, the model is not perfect, but it's useful enough to where we can make or we can make some predictions that allow us to determine the best kind of course of action to go. I can look at how you feel about one thing and guess how you feel about a bunch of other things because of that model. If you think the government is coming to save you, you probably support all kinds of things where I just go, I can't really get behind it. I mean, like good for you, but I can kind of see where this is going to go. And a great example of this is one of the arguments that we have here in the United States is the $15 minimum wage. Okay, and on one side, it's like, oh great, everyone has more money. me, on the other hand, because I never let myself get deceived by reality. So one of the things I study is economics, just being curious, and I'm like, okay, so if we do this, then what about all the people who make 14 an hour, who are skilled, and also what happens when that's the new minimum wage and everyone just raises the prices, and now we've just got inflation, and
Or if
yeah,
like you want to start a business and you can't afford to pay someone
hey, right,
$15 an hour, then it's just like that completely ostracizes the people that they're trying to help, you know? The
and
people like yourself who came from those kind of backgrounds, well, sorry, you're just not worth $15 an
right,
hour.
it's hilarious. And to that, because then what happens a lot of times when you try to think like this, you often come up with ideas that are counterintuitive and perhaps not entirely popular. And one day I was just sitting around thinking about it, and maybe I was trying to troll, maybe I wasn't, but I was
Oh,
thinking, and I said, really the best thing to do in this, like if you're really worried about people being paid a great wage, the best thing to do would be to get rid of the minimum wage entirely and let competition sort it out. And people were like, "What?" And I just kept thinking about it. Maybe, and I don't know if that is the most correct answer. I'm just riffing here to make an example of the two different thought processes. But some people will go, "That's great because I have the skill to take care of myself and I'll figure it out." And on the other side, people go, "That's horrible. We need regulations in place. We need someone to take care of and protect us." Now you can't go, completely extreme. On one extreme you get anarchy, and the other extreme you get communism. But people who tend to lean a little closer to anarchy probably tend to think more like me, and people who tend to lean a little more towards communism, but they'll never say that, tend to think not like me.
yeah, I think what we tend to forget when we talk about minimum wage is that minimum wage was never supposed to be living wage. It was never supposed to be something which, will allow you to rent and pay your bills and
Right.
get
Don't.
food and it was just supposed to be like a little cushion, so that you can afford potentially to buy a really cheap suit after you've been working at this place for so long. And then you can afford to, put that nice suit on to go to another interview and work your way up. Like it was just supposed to be like a
Yeah.
little cushion. Like it was never supposed to be something which could pay your bills. And actually, you make a really good point about the model of personal responsibility. So this is hilarious. I don't know, you may have heard this, I'm not sure, but I think it was a UK article. They basically made a headline. The headline was something like, if you're a gym bro, if like you're one of those guys that, gym and all this stuff, you're more likely to be a radical right-wing person because you take personal responsibility for your health and the way you look physically. You don't have to start a whole movement which basically says it's okay to be fat, it's okay to be unhealthy. They've taken personal responsibility, so that makes them more likely to be right-wing.
It's the same thing here. Well, the joke is I can tell which side of the line you're on by the strength of your
Mhm.
handshake.
Literally.
And then, I don't know if one would say fortunately or unfortunately, but there is a lot more truth in that than I think either side wants there to be. But at the end of the day, I think people think that I like lean right or whatever. I have no idea what I lean because I don't pay attention to politics. I know that I'm for personal responsibility, and it seems like uh, that is a model or a policy of one side or one take, and that is coincidence at best. At worst, probably someone actively trying to uh, keep one group of people or many groups of people dependent on the government, and those who don't
Mhm.
think that way are radicals, black sheeps, Uncle Toms, whatever you want to call call us.
Yeah, I think it's a shame because I actually think this kind of mentality is the only way to succeed. If you continue to sort of take a victim mindset, if you continue to sort of say I can't and the world is against me and I need to vote this way. Let's say I need to vote Democrats so that they can save me and all this stuff. You'll never get out of it. It's sort of like a continuation. I just feel like this kind of mentality perpetuates it. But I want to talk a little bit actually about masculinity in today's world, because you mentioned that your father wasn't really present, and you had a lot of abuse growing up, and all these different things. So, what are your thoughts on masculinity today? From my perspective, I see there's a huge I feel like there's a huge feminization of men. There was the recent picture of Harry Styles in a dress and all these things, and I will say each to
Oh
their own.
man.
Whatever, each to their own, whatever you want to do. But I just wanted to get your opinion on it. What is going on? Do you
You
have
know
any
what's
theory?
cool? You know what's cool because like I can tell if you're bringing this up. You're probably you're probably on my side, or you're setting a trap. Don't think you're setting a trap. So all things are good. No, but in all seriousness, I think okay. So sexual dimorphism is a thing. Like you don't look like me, and I don't look like you, and that is that's just a feature of the species, right? We're not going to dive into the benefits, pros, cons of it. That's just what we are, and each of us, because of that, because of the dimorphism, we come with certain strengths and certain weaknesses. Each of us. It's a great error to group all the okay, so what happens with the toxic masculinity movement um, is that they throw the baby out with the bathwater. They take traits that are masculine and they're just bad. Okay, not the same thing can be happening, but it happens with women,
Like
but
anger and
yeah.
stuff like that.
Yeah, but like now the same thing happens with women, but to a lesser extent, almost to a non-existent extent, because like now, it's effectively a crime really to criticize women publicly. But what happens, what happens with a lot of the masculine traits is they're amoral. They're neither good nor bad. It's just who wields them. Is your villain the only difference between a villain and a good villain and a good hero is one, well, his perspective or the perspective of the people against, and how he decides to use it. The strength is strength, whether it's used to build or destroy, uplift or control, dominate or dedicate. It's all strength, and it is a masculine virtue, a dedication, intensity, all of these things. Here's the problem. Okay, now that we've kind of loosely defined what masculinity is, this kind of active force in the world that's amoral but makes things happen. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
here's the problem. When it starts when you're younger.
Okay.
It starts with boys being I think it was like five. I did a presentation on this 2 years ago or a year ago, I think, and I think it was about 5 times more likely to be diagnosed with ADHD. Now, if it was then now why is that? It's not that boys are have problems focusing. It's that we have a world, a structure for young boys where they're told sit still in a classroom for freaking almost 8 hours a day, and there's something wrong with you if you can't, and that's problematic. We have deregulated a deregulated, unregulated sexual market. We actually have a little worse than that. If you can like an unregulated market is a black market, right? And in a black market, if you cross somebody, they can come and cross you back, and that's what a black market is, pretty much operating outside the law. And the criminals, keep things in check. We call this prison justice, right? Or street justice. Well, it's a bit worse than that, because if a woman accuses you of something false, for example, there's no recourse if she's caught, really. At least not nearly as serious of a one to deter it. Um, there is no recourse. If you decide you don't want the kid, but she does, you still have to pay, right?
Mm.
Um, Dave Chappelle made a great joke about that. He goes, your body, your choice, my wallet, my choice. You keep them, but I decide I don't want to pay for them, right? And then that's like where that is a reasonable reaction, a reasonable stance, but that's not there. Why do I bring that up? Not just to go, shit on the movement, but to highlight that we've now incentivized. And forget disincentivizing with shame, right? Because as we used to have, we used to disincentivize single moms, where there was no male in the house helping to raise. We used to just disincentivize the rampant sexuality. We used to disincentivize that. Uh,
Mhm.
no more shame died, and then maybe when I was in high school. Now we've incentivized it. We've incentivized it because there's a government state that will make sure you're okay. Like no matter what, you're gonna be okay because we're gonna give you some money if you have this kid. And not only that, we're gonna finance, we're gonna legally attack the father of the kid. Now he should be responsible, but my point here is that the weight of responsibility is not
It's gone.
equal. It's
Yeah.
gone. And so how does this all relate to God's, kind of the war on masculinity, whatever, is not only are we told it's bad from our development, standpoint, but we're also not getting good examples of it at home because many more kids are being raised without fathers in their life than they are.
Right.
So that's happening. The school is assaulting you on you being a boy, but by virtue of the girl's position, very often she's more likely to be believed. I mean, there are so many there are many stories of that. All it takes is one accusation, as opposed to due process before someone's life for a guy's life is ripped to absolute shreds, and that is problematic. It's highly problematic. So you've got these things in place, and yeah, I am a firm believer that there's an attack on what it takes to be a man, and that's just one aspect of it. Another aspect is the world is very easy now, and one of the things that kind of shaped what made you a man was overcoming hardship. There are no
Hmm.
hardships to overcome, and we are basically Wally. The only difference between 2020 and Wally is that in Wally they figured out space, so they're in space, they got technology, but it's the same thing. You can sit in your house. I remember even 10 years ago when I was 25. If I only made $800 a month, man, I had a rough life. $800 a month now, that's a Netflix subscription. That's some cheap food that can be
Sure.
brought to you and walked to. Cheap liquor, an OnlyFans subscription, or all the porn in the world. So in case I don't, which completely demotivates. We're not even gonna get started on the porn thing, but that's another force that just completely, because they trap you. They're like drug addicts. It's like, okay, here's some breasts. Come on in, check it out. And then
You don't
next
have to put in the work. You don't have to put in the work. You don't have to do anything. It's all just there for you. But
yeah.
that's insane. That's insane to think that actually $800 would get you so much. Because
Oh,
obviously, we think about like inflation though, but we think about inflation and like $800 was obviously worth more 10 years ago. But in
so
terms of
maybe
what actually,
$1,000.
no, but I'm with you. No, but I'm with you because you didn't have all of this 10 years ago. So,
Right.
yeah, I'm totally with you.
And it's crazy because humans in general, I think, need a thing to push against, but within that
Men
subspecies,
more.
men need things to push against. They need things to challenge them. They need to be able, when they're younger, to not be told that wanting to run around and play sports and have a lot of energy is a bad thing. They need role models. All these things are gone,
Yeah, I
and
think.
ease is in place of it, and so it's going to become harder and harder for guys to develop into men. A good friend of mine told me he's got a bunch of kids. He said he's more worried about his daughters being able to find a decent guy to be with than his son being able to find a woman, because nothing has, in terms of the environment that is ideal for producing a woman. Sure, there are some things that are like not good, like the financial incentive of OnlyFans and the porno sites. That's certainly no good. But there's not anything that impedes their development. Just distractions along the path that, with a good home life, are largely avoidable, like a good family. Not so much for guys.
It's interesting.
God needs to get his ass kicked. For example, now we got anti-bullying. I'm not saying we need bullies in schools, but I'm saying, guys deal with conflict differently. We can fight and then be friends, but you
We
gotta fight
can't.
first,
Yeah.
right?
We don't do that. We don't even fight. We just cut each other off. No, I'm joking.
Right.
Yeah.
It's sport.
No,
It's
I'm totally with you.
sports. A role model, and if you get your role models from society, okay. But there are many more examples for strong women in society than there are for men. I gave a speech at a program, and the woman came to me. She said, the if you can, would love for you to talk to some of the guys specifically, because the girls get tons of attention. This is a woman. I think she was in her late 50s, early 60s. So from another era, and notice says that the guys are not getting the attention and the effort and energy they need. And I know I 100% feel it, man, because I didn't have any of that. And I think that's why I was interested in football. And then once football was gone in high school, I kind of floated around wayward. And then I did, but something said you got to find a thing to put some sweat equity in. And I found boxing, and which these are hard environments that shape you and force you to be disciplined and accountable. And you have to channel your energy and channel your aggression. All the things that society does not have an outlet for you to do, for a guy to do, you can do them in boxing, and it's great. Like, we have so many different ways and outlets, scholarships for and everything. Many different ways set up for women to succeed, and I have nothing against that. I think that's great. I think the problem is that right now it doesn't have to be. Right now it's a zero sum game. So the more one side gets a thing, the less the other side gets. And when we did that, and we've done this for a long time, we as humans have to come up with a better way, because it used to be the other way, right? Where guys got a there was much more in for society out there for guys, but
Mhm.
not so much for women if they wanted to venture out. But that gets into another argument. But the TLDR to kind of put a cap on this part of the conversation is that it is very hard for a boy to develop into a man today, and it's only going to get harder the easier society gets. And part of becoming easy, almost by definition, and I mean this is easy, isn't not facing resistance for anyone who wants to make a joke, but part of becoming a man is that life is going to become easier, and a feminized, or women seek a path kind of less resistance, certainly physically, and to a lesser extent emotionally. And guys don't get that option, but it doesn't come from nowhere. You got to develop it. Society's making it hard to develop.
Yeah, that was a lot there. I want to, okay, no, it's good. It's good. It's good. So two things I want to mention. The first, just back to what you initially said. I'm absolutely with you. I think I think the government has disincentivized, not just men, but just people in general, to sort of like doing the thing which creates the better outcome, right? So if it's sort of like, if it's like, a family unit, kids and all this stuff, like you said, they'll pay for you, they'll reward you with money when you have, let's say, children outside of a marriage and this and that, and you don't want to be responsible for it. So that, like you said, they will pay you and support you. So it disincentivizes you from wanting to do what could create a better outcome long term. But it is actually International Men's Day.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah, so congrats. Happy International Men's Day.
Hey,
there you go. So I
was flipped at conception, and here I am.
Here you are. I don't. No. Listen, the fact that you didn't know basically just proves everything you said, right? Because you would know if it was International Women's Day.
Oh yeah, look.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a great point. And if I wanted to, I'd have to block the hashtag, but I know at that point. But I wouldn't block it. I mean, I've got nothing against women at all.
No, of course not. But what I want to say actually is, because you spoke a lot about boxing and how, you know, it's sort of a man needs that sort of physical challenge in order to become a man. He needs all these challenges. You know, you spoke about ADHD and all this stuff. But from a female perspective, I think, of course, it's different. You were saying, you know, men need that to become a woman. Sorry, to become a man. Women don't need that to become a woman. But what I would say in terms of building strong people, regardless of gender, from just my experience, I think the best thing that men like yourself who are into self-improvement and, you know, challenging themselves physically can offer women is encouraging them to do physical challenge, right? So I saw a video earlier today of a dad helping his little girl in the gym. And I was like, that is perfect. I was like, this is it. This is what women need. This is how men can benefit women. This is how they add value to women, because they're, you know, we both add value to each other. Whether it's, you know, we help men when it comes to sort of bringing out their more emotional side or nurturing or whatever it is, love and all this stuff and care, which is totally, I'm happy to do that. That's, you know, what it is. And I think from my experience, you know, my brother, for example, is a huge role model for me. And he's the one that got me in the gym. And he's the one that will turn around to me and say, oh my God, Layah, of course you can do that. You can do anything. And then I'm like, oh yeah, of course I can do anything, you know. And that kind of rational, that kind of like unemotional, hard opinion sort of, it comes mainly from men, that sort of unemotional, like, yeah, you could do it, like, you know. And I think women need that. And I think that's that kind of strength that men have is what adds a lot of value to women. And I kind of wanted to highlight that on International Man's Day, because that's sort of Men's Day, sorry, because that's the thing that I find just to be the most amazing thing about men in general. For me, they add so much value in terms of making me feel powerful and like I can.
I appreciate that. And what you said is so key, and I wish everyone understood it. We need each other. We were not, one of the things about a sexual dimorphism when we're so different is that to be whole, we need one another. One of the things I made a point is that, you know, when two things are equal, by definition, you don't need one of them. But when they're complementary, you do, and we complement one another so well. You're strong where we're weak, and we're weak where you're strong, and together a society is built. My fear, my worry, and this is where the world is going, is that the strengths are muted and the weaknesses don't necessarily rise because you're not designed to rise. Like no matter how much you put in the gym, you ain't never gonna be as big as me. Like it ain't never gonna happen. And likewise, I'm pretty damn good with people. I will never want to talk as much as a typical woman and make that connection. I'm never gonna feel good that way. And that's important. People need to be comforted. People need to become. We need strength to protect said comforting ability. But when you mute the differences, you take away the most beautiful part of each of us, and you make us when we're weaker. And that's what I think happens because gaps don't stay empty for long. If the less masculine you make men, the more you punish their masculinity, the more you're forcing a woman to become masculine. And neither people are comfortable in the role. They're both weaker. You don't get the focus on being you, and I don't get the focus on being me. And so now we're just kind of a mess. Floating around, neither one of us really good. Forget jack of all trades, master of none. We're kind of bad at everything now. And that is the biggest kind of danger, I think. So I really appreciate that notice of the role of encouraging and support and kind of no nonsense objective, you can do this attitude, as opposed to because you recognize, like, if it, like a girlfriend would be like, oh, you know, you may not get as much practical advice on how to do it, but you'll get a cheerleader right?
Yeah, exactly.
And you need
Yeah.
both. You need somebody that's gonna be like, you got this no matter what. You're amazing. You're wonderful. You go, girl. Like you need
Yeah.
that, but you
Yeah,
also need
you need
to be like, you also need someone to be like, look here, we got this, this, and this, and you can't face that right now. But if we go here and maybe you get in the gym like 6 months, you can be all right to face this one, and when you get that one, you'll be ready for that one. Like they're
it's so
two
much
different,
better. It's so great. I prefer the
and
male perspective.
one isn't better than the other. They're
Yeah.
just but they when you have both, you become unstoppable. And when you have neither, which is kind of where we're trending, you can
Yeah.
do nothing.
Yeah, absolutely. Totally with you. You need both. You're right. You need that. You go, girl. You got this. You're beautiful. You got this. And then you need the, okay, stop crying. This isn't gonna help.
Right.
Move. You need that. You do. But I think it's interesting though, particularly like the whole feminism movement and everything, because it's sort of what the most confusing part to me is that it sort of encourages women to empower themselves. Obviously, it's feminism, but by sort of removing their feminine traits, which is so odd to me, right? So it's like less. So I'm not saying that. Like, I'm not saying like feminism is. I'm not saying like being a woman is defined by how long your hair is and like what you wear and all this stuff. Of course, it goes much deeper than that. But you'll often find that people who are sort of promoting feminism are sort of like rejecting traditional feminine values, which is really odd to me. It's sort of like a contradiction, you know?
Yeah, it's really interesting. It's like to be better black people, we're gonna stop being black. I mean, like that would
Yeah.
be that sounds weird and silly, but I don't think the history is just a series of overcorrections.
Mm-hmm.
And when you look at it that way, then everything makes sense because look, as much as some people want to like rag on the feminist movement, you have to understand it sprung up because, well, at one point, women were getting left high and dry by guys, but when the law only, you didn't, you shit. I got the right to vote before in the United States before you got the right to vote. But blacks before, and we didn't think we were treated like nothing. So at some point, you just got to look at like how did all this start, and then you go okay, and this, then you go, all right, well, we see how this happened and see how this happened. We can't really fix the past. Let's just kind of start all over and wipe the slate clean. I don't know if that'll ever happen. That's like forgiveness on a massive scale that humanity desperately needs, but will
And is
likely
incapable of.
likely never get there. And I'm a huge proponent of forgiveness. So my mind immediately went, well, you're never gonna really be able to balance this out. You just gotta wipe this clean and move forward. But we'll see. People give me hope. Not so much recently, but they
No, it's funny.
but in general, man, adaptability is the name of our species, or as a trait of our species. So hopefully
I think
we
forgiveness. Yeah, what I say, I think forgiveness is huge. I think that's such a big point that you mentioned. And I think that's probably actually one of like the biggest issues in society. Everybody's so angry at everyone, right? Like everyone is a minority in some place in the world. Whether it's I don't know, whether it's like you're black, you're white, you're Jewish, you're fat, you're short, you're ginger, you're whatever the hell you are, you're Asian, somebody's not going to like you. I just think everyone's so angry, like constantly, and
angry.
forgiveness is so important.
They're angry, and even worse, they're angry about things they can't do anything about. And when I say they can't do anything about it, I don't mean like they can't lobby and change laws or
Mm-hmm.
protest whatever. I mean we're angry about things that are in the past, and we look for reasons to be angry, and we're looking for reasons to be angry that we cannot do a thing about. A big example of this played out on a huge stage across the world was the decision to start tearing down statues. And I'm like, okay, well, what's the end game here? and
Mm-hmm.
and like what's your reason? Well, they did X, Y, and Z. And I'm like, okay, if we start applying that principle that you can never be anything or have any positive effect or ever get any type of praise for anything you did because you have something bad in your past, then no one is ever going to be in a position to encourage or inspire anyone, because people aren't perfect. And so we're at this position, we're at this point in history where we can't, where you can't, you can find a way, you can find a reason, you dig hard enough and you can find a reason to cancel anybody,
Mm-hmm.
right? And all canceling is an attempt to change the past. You did something awful, or rather, to make you pay for a transgression that perhaps wasn't a transgression, but now we've decided it is, which is even worse. You know, at least if you took my money, I can say, okay, I can see how much you took. I'm gonna take that back and some interest. But if you just decided it was a bad thing and it wasn't at the time, you know, that's awful. We can't do that, and all it does is just create an endless cycle of anger, because you're always going to be able to look back and always move that goalpost. You're always going to be able to go,
Mm-hmm.
okay, I don't feel X, Y, or Z is good. So I'm going to see how many people I can get to be angry about it, and it may be nothing. Here in the U.S., I don't know how they did it over there. Here in the U.S., a few years ago, they decided we could no longer play "Baby It's Cold Outside" on the radio. Right?
Oh, really? Wait, maybe I heard that. Okay.
Okay, and I don't remember the reason, but what I know is that that song's been played for a long time, and now it's a big deal. Okay,
Uh-huh.
it's crazy to me, right? And we decide it's a big deal, but then at the same time we decide newer things that if you weigh them on the same block of morality or affect people, you go,
Mm-hmm.
okay, that's crazy. Someone made a great post, and I thought it was hilarious. And then I share things to stir the bear or poke the bear sometimes. And he goes, how woke do you have to be offended by "Baby It's Cold Outside" but not WAP? That song would go down.
Yes, exactly,
And
exactly.
I
This is not. Yeah, go on, go on.
and I was like, that's good. I'm good. It's good. I get it. Well, but the point is, until you can let go of things, and we have a big problem collectively. Humanity, I think, is taking a backward step emotionally. We're not able to let go of stuff we want, and you can't let go of it when you feel like there's something you should get for a thing that was past, and since you can't extract resources, you're trying to deprive resources. When you can't extract, and when you can't actually change the past, you're trying to change how everyone feels in the present towards it. They're actually like physically altering things right now, thinking that will make a difference. Like that changes our history. So,
I think
uh,
you make. Yeah, I think you make an insane point, right? That it's like how woke do you have to be offended by a Christmas song, but not offended by what or however you say it. Like if you think about, do you know what? I was listening to an Ariana Grande song actually, in the gym the other day, and there's a line, right? And literally the line is, I won't actually fully say it because I think I might, like YouTube might do something. I don't know, but it's just "F me until the daylight" is the line. Okay, so it's "F me until it's daylight," right? And
right.
I'm like, hold up. I was like, when did this happen? Because I saw when I was younger. So I'm 24, but when I was like 10 years ago, when I was 14 or 12, whatever, I remember Lady Gaga had a song, and the song was "Let Me Ride on Your Disco Stick," right? And
Yeah.
only like 10 years later do I listen back and I'm like, oh, okay, I get what she's saying. Oh my God, I can't believe I was singing that next to my mum in the car. But, but F me to the daylight, it never used to be like that. And so how are we encouraging that? How are we encouraging little girls singing that, right? And they will say it, they will swear, but we're like, oh my God, God forbid, there's a Christmas song which is just,
Right.
not politically correct. And that's not the only song I saw on BBC today. Let me just get it. So BBC Radio 1 will not play original version of Fairy Tale of New York,
Yeah, I
because
saw
the
that.
audience may be offended by derogatory terms for gender and sexuality. But we can definitely play by Ariana Grande to 10-year-old girls, "F me till the daylight."
Yeah,
That
it's
so
a
mad.
weird ploy and a word play. And here's another thing too, because it's based on who did it and not what they did that creates a huge problem. I'll never forget. It was a great post, and I'm going to paraphrase it because I can't quite remember, but I remember the idea. Zuby made a post, and he was talking about he was talking about saying the N word in rap music, and he said you got to understand can white people say it or not? Because as a black person who's not American, you got to understand that that's kind of confusing to me. Like, is it a bad word or is it only bad depending on who says it?
What
And
are
if,
your
if
thoughts?
okay, my thoughts on that. I
And then
personally look. Okay, so first and foremost, what people got to understand is that the N word used in music is not the same thing that we were called in the '60s. Two different words. They're spelled differently. Not like so differently you're gonna confuse them, but they're pronounced differently. They sound differently. They're not the same. They're not used the same. Whatever, right? So that is the first thing I always make sure I bring up is that when you look at language, that's not the same word. It doesn't have the same idea. It's not spelled the same. It's not used the same. There's nothing about those words that are the same. As far as people getting offended as if it were the same,
Mhm.
uh, that is that's problematic. That's problematic because you're deciding that, and it's not problematic, and because every group has their own terms that you use within your own people, or are terms that you can only use like I can call. I can call my mom an ass and a hole, but you do it, we're gonna have a problem, that kind of thing, right? Problem, but that's my mom, right? Now, if I made a song or I'm doing that, and all of a sudden people start coming up to me going, "Oh, what's up, man? Is that your mom? The a hole in the song?" Okay, now we have a problem, and so so now I got to make a decision as a gatekeeper of that
Exactly.
that that phrase. I got to go. Okay, is it cool or is it not cool? And whatever I do has got to be consistent across the board because there's going to be a lot of people who have moms just like mine. They're going to hear it and they're going to go, "Yeah, mom, you're like that, mom. You're an a-hole too." They're like, "What's wrong with you?" Like, no, it's cool. Ed said it about his mom, so I was saying about my mom.
Your
But
poor mum.
they're totally different families, just because you're both moms. And the point about it, and this was not this totally ended up being a better analogy than I thought it was when it came out of my mouth. Uh, but the whole idea, the whole point here is that when you decide the term is used amongst Black Americans
Yeah.
until you go and realize that there aren't just Black people in America, and those Black people don't have the same history, so it's a hard way to differentiate it and decide who can say what. Like when I was living in Portugal, man, I was amazed. The radio was just playing this music, and it was like there was no
Oh,
censors, nothing.
wow.
Which over here, it used to be censors. Now I was listening to the radio the other day, and I was like, let's see if they say what they used to censor. I don't remember the song, but I was listening intently, and they didn't censor it. I was like, oh, okay, it's new. Uh, but I guess my point is, as much as I want it to be a person issue, the people won't let it be because how can they? There are enough Black people in the world, and enough of them, rightfully so. That's the other thing, rightfully so, can get offended if it's used. I think if you're gonna make it a big deal personally, you got to go. You can't use it, and no one can use it. And if you use it around me, we're gonna have a problem. I've met some older Black men who are just like that. They're like, "Don't use that word around me." I'm like, "Okay, that's
Mhm.
cool," because he's holding all of us to a standard. My issue is when you have guys that say, "All right, it's cool for me. It's not cool for you." That's
Mhm.
um, that's going to create their own problems. I mean, and they're going to be mad when someone shows up, from freaking, would say from Colombia, and they don't know. I was in the Dominican Republic, and all the people were shouting out to one another at the resort, "Hey, Blackie," that's what they call one another. Black.
Really? Oh, that sounds awful. That sounds terrible.
Sounds awful, but it's
Yeah.
just a nickname, Blackie. Now
Yeah.
you couldn't
Agreed.
do
Yeah.
that here, but imagine
It
if they
sounds quite nice, actually. Like if
imagine if they
you
got
sort of
exported out the U.S. You'd have an issue. So now I think that genie's out the bottle. You know, it's not going back in. But I can't tell people to live with it. If the rappers look, I'll tell you what. Here's what happened. If the rappers stop using it in songs, I
then
give
everyone.
it 3 years before for the turn. But they're not going to stop using it in songs because it's profitable. People want to hear it. So,
I tend to agree with everything you said. I think the biggest, so I think there's two parts to it, isn't it? I think it's sort of like taking ownership of a word which meant one thing and being able to sort of be like, no, now this is ours. It's, taking ownership of that. But I think at the same time, I think this was maybe 2 years ago. I don't remember. There was a black rapper. I can't remember who it was, but he had the N-word in a song and he was singing live or whatever. And he got a white woman to come up on stage with him and sing the rap words. And it just so she drops the N-word, but it was in the song. So it caused a lot of issues. So
who do you get mad at? Like,
everyone said she shouldn't have said it. Well, like, okay, maybe she shouldn't have done, but like, it's not clear. Where do we draw the line? Like, is it even possible to have a line? Lines are inherently blurry. So can we not just say like no for everyone and then like move forward?
And then people are gonna be like, "How?" And then here's what happened: if you say no for everyone, then they're like, "How you gonna tell me I can't say it? I'm one of them." I'd be that guy. The thing is, I don't have an issue with it, so I don't know, man. It's a hard one to discuss, and there is probably never going to be a right answer. All you got to do is make sure that you're in that you don't use it when you're in the right company, wrong company, I guess. Right?
Just know your audience. Know your audience.
No. There you go. Know your audience because. Yeah.
I'm with you. We've come to an hour, which is actually the longest I've done a podcast for. So that's super cool. So we break.
Oh, really? I just figured this was about that.
No, it's great. No, it's fab. It's great. I love it. I usually go between like half an hour to an hour. So I usually end at like 45 minutes, 40, maybe 50 minutes. But this is great. Do you have any final words you want to say?
No, this has been a very fun conversation. I had no idea where it was going to go, and I can tell you, I have not talked about 3 of these topics on podcasts ever.
Damn.
No one's ever asked me about the masculinity thing. I thought that was cool. This whole N-word discussion, thought that was pretty entertaining, and then kind of the direction of society. Is very cool. This has been very fun, and I'm happy that you let me come on and we can have a chat in front of your audience.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so good to have you. So I want to thank you so much for coming on. I want to thank my sponsors, Icon Plus, BlockFi, CoinFlip, and I also really want to thank ZellaPay because I absolutely forgot to thank them, and that's a big mistake on me. So I'll play their sponsorship in a minute. Ed, thank you so much, and guys, don't forget to tune in next week, Thursday, 12 EST. Bye bye.